Welcome back. You learned at the beginning of this program that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence calls open source the intelligence of first resort. But intel leaders, especially military leaders, admit that hasn't always been the case. Deric Palmer's former assistant special agent in charge in the Criminal Investigation Division for the Army. He's now the chief technical officer for OSINT at OSINT. John Larson's president and chief AI officer at Babel Street. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to talk to both of you. Deric, I start with you. What do you think has driven that evolution over time, where at first government agencies were really hesitant about OSINT, and now, as ODNI says, intel of first resort?
Great question. I think the biggest issue is that the government is starting to realize that it's an actual valuable intelligence feed that they can bring into their ecosystem. Open source intelligence is very simply just using every resource at your reach to be able to pull things, whether you're looking at infrastructure, if you're looking at public domains, online behavior, even influence networks and activities. There's always some type of signal that you can pull in and bring that in to add to your intel and provide additional exquisite intel, or just refine the intel and confirm what you actually have in your environment already.
It strikes me that maybe the word that keys in on the thing I was thinking about there is the word signal that you used.
Yes.
It's just using this information as the same type of signals intelligence that people have used for dozens or hundreds of years.
Absolutely. It's no different than using the practices and the methodology of open source intelligence and compare it to SIGINT, to HUMINT, to GEOINT. All of that is intelligence, and it's all signals. It's tipping and queuing. And you can get the same type of information through open source intelligence. Are
people using and collating, gathering the information in OSINT the same way they do in those other specialties?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if it was SIGINT, you're collecting just data upon data on signals, right? Same thing with geospatial intelligence. With geospatial intelligence, you're analyzing photographs and imagery and satellite imagery. So it's all signals, it's all data points that you can bring into your enclave, analyze it, combine it, and really divine what your threat picture might look like, or get to a solution or an answer to a problem that you may have.
John, you used a term before we went on the air that I want to ask you about, and that's the rise of agents. What do you mean by that, and how is that impacting the things that Deric talked about a moment ago?
Yeah, well, I think when we think about the role of AI in this entire OSINT space, it's really interesting. We obviously, if you roll the clock back and think about 12, 15 years ago, we had a major breakthrough in convolutional neural networks. And what it did was it gave us the power to really understand images in a way we never had before. And so that journey of AI breaking through these barriers, that moment was sort of like a 4-minute mile. It really transformed and changed the way we thought about AI. And then you kind of roll forward again, and we had that next seminal moment with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. That bursts onto the stage, and you suddenly have this ability to synthesize vast amounts of information and distill it, right? And so that was unlocked by transformers, which really gave you this ability to take away from sequential processing and move into parallelization. And then you also had this attention, which gave you context, which was really important to understand the context of data. And then you move forward from that, and it was an evolution within large language models and generative AI that unlocks this rise of agents. Mm-hmm. And that's this notion of an ability to reason and take action. And so now these rise of agents gives you this ability to create chain of thought. So AI can think through a very complex set of processes and actions, and from that, it can make decisions, it can access tools. And so when you think about the vast amounts of data, Deric, that you're talking about, it was almost the signal from noise challenge is overwhelming. We're generating so much data that it's very difficult to distill and find the signal. The agents are going to automate that. They're going to enable us to be able to move and traverse all that information at a scale and speed that we couldn't before. And so that's why I think this OSINT space is truly about to be disrupted as these agents come to fore. And they're in the emergent phase right now, but they're on the precipice of really transforming the way things are going to happen here.
Yeah, I would key off of that. Like, the agents, like, what's really going to help us out in this entire environment is, as John stated, is we're drowning in data right now. There are vast amounts of data that's constantly coming out that as a human, we have limited bandwidth, we have limited time, we have limited attention to constantly dig through all that data. And with the AI agents, that's going to really help surface relevant data to us and help eliminate the noise.
Right.
And I think AI is really going to enhance open source intelligence because that's a big problem. You spend a lot of time aggregating and collecting data through multiple sources and then having to analyze through all that data. So you would think the easy part was, okay, I find a piece of data, I analyze it, I put it in my bucket. Well, that's not speed. So that's the biggest thing that we're trying to answer in this space of combining AI and open source intelligence operations, or just in the government writ large, is how can we sift through that data at a very fast and scalable solution that will surface relevant data to us to really help our decision makers make decisions much faster.
It sounds too like you would have the ability then too, Deric, to have different agents doing different things. You have a whole cohort of agents instead of just a bunch of agents all doing the same thing. They can almost be customized.
I wouldn't say a cohort. I mean, you can literally generate with agentic AI your own army and workforce of agents to be able to do a lot of the menial tasks for you, the time-consuming tasks that can go out and harvest the data and bring it in, help the human analyze all that data, and then the human can put in their judgment and going, okay, this is relevant, I need to bring this to my leadership.
And it's a swarm of agents is what it's called, basically. And you think about the agents have different personas. So you imbue each of those agents with a persona so they can go out and complete your tasks on your behalf at your direction. And so you'll have an agent that's focused on collection, and that will help orchestrate all the collection. You have another agent that will think about the context, what collection is taking place and how is that relevant from a context place. You also have agents that will be challengers or adversaries, because you want to make sure that you challenge all the assumptions these other agents are bringing forward and ensure that what you're getting has veracity behind it, which is so important both in the world of OSINT, right, but also to engender human trust, because one of the big challenges is going to be how is this going to be adopted? And you need to build trust with the humans who are being put in the command chair to run and orchestrate this by giving them transparency, governance, guardrails, and an ability to see and understand the information that enabled these agents to come back and serve it up to you.
Absolutely.
You really like that idea of a challenger agent when he was talking about that.
Yeah, a challenger agent. I was also going to say we also you can actually inject a normalization agent as well to normalize all the data feeds coming in, because you do see that in OSINT where if you're looking at multiple sources, they're all saying the same thing but in a different context. So as a human, you have to read through each thing and try and pull out what is the relevant context. With a normalization agent, it'll do it for you quickly. So again, it's surfacing that relevant information to you really fast.
John, you used the 4-minute mile analogy earlier in the conversation, and I think that's really, really right on target for a kind of a conceptual reason as much as a technical reason. If I remember right, nobody thought anybody could ever run a 4-minute mile until somebody did it, and then a whole bunch of people could do it all of a sudden. And that sounds like what's happened with a number of those milestones that you mentioned in the progression of large language models and artificial intelligence. Am I drawing the right parallel there? Am I catching that?
Yeah, I think that is right. It is truly, it's the combination of all these things together that has really accelerated the pace at which this technology is now unfolding. It's the combination of data. I mean, you started early on. The role of data is so important in this. All of this is fueled by data. And I think the thing that's really interesting is, in particular, if you think about the OSINT world, is one, not all data is created equal. There's a variety of data, right? So there's the publicly available data, there's the behind the paywall data, there's the first party data that you go out and you acquire, there's data that lives behind adversarial firewalls that you have to obtain and access. All of that information is the fuel, it's the oil for this AI, right? And so I think that's the first bit. And then the second bit is that generative AI, as it starts to come onto the fore, you're starting to see it create the factories, the refineries that can harvest the information and the intelligence. And so I do think you're going to see this rapid succession of technology. You're going to see the agents are in their very early stages right now, and that is going to unfold at breakneck speed. We were talking earlier in the green room about how this technology is unfolding so fast, it's almost difficult. Even for myself, I'm deep in the technology, it's hard to keep pace with this. And so it's very exciting, it's also
Yeah.
daunting. And I think that creates an adoption challenge as well, because it is just happening so fast. Every day you wake up, there's a new frontier model, there's a new agent capability that's been released, and it's very challenging to keep pace, but it's also, I think, probably one of the most exciting times. I've been doing AI since 1995, 96. This is without a doubt. Like, if I could pick any profession in the world to be in, this is it. This is the moment. This is the time. This is what's really exciting. This technology has all come together.
What's the key to integrating as this technology progresses, and especially given the fact, Deric, that it progresses as quickly as you both have described? How do you integrate that into the plants that organizations are already using technologically, and how do you integrate the information and the data that you're getting from an OSINT perspective in with all of the other types of intelligence that you referenced earlier in the conversation?
Yeah, I think the key thing when you're bringing in AI into your enclave, whether it's the government or it's the enterprise, like number one, you have to have mission clarity. You have to understand
That's right.
what you want to do. And then you also have to apply policy guardrails. You're going to need legal and privacy compliance reviews. You're going to need validation standards and human judgment involved in that. Because if you don't have that practice baked in before you even implement AI into your processes, you're going to fall behind, way behind, and you're going to cause some errors. The thing is, like, and John touched on this very, very acutely, is what we see today is what we see as normal. Hey, this is what AI is. It's going to be completely different tomorrow. It's going to be different 6 months from now. It's going to be different years from now, because everyone's involved in it and everyone's training it. And it's a very, as John said in the green room, like, we're in a new industrial age with AI, and it's changing at such a rapid pace that if you're not dedicated to understanding the nuances and what's behind behind the engine, and the creation of AI and the fine-tuning of AI, you're going to fall behind.
So that's got to have implications for how one thinks strategically about how one is guiding an organization, not just in the OSINT space, but anybody that's using this technology, particularly in the intelligence area. How does that inform the way that I should think differently from a strategic perspective? How I'm going to build my workforce, how I'm going to build my technology infrastructure, how I'm going to buy what I need to buy to have all this work the way that I want it to work, all of that. You go first. I want to get your thoughts on that too, John.
You have to have a clear mission. And when you have that clear mission, you have to understand exactly what you want your outcome to be. And then from there, strategically, you can start designing of what I'm going to bring into it. And really what you have to weigh out is, what is your risk reward? Like, if you're dealing with intelligence information from our intelligence community, your risk threshold is extremely, extremely low. You do not want to induce a lot of risk by bringing in something into your enclave. So you want to be very controlling about how you go about that. Enterprise environments can do the same thing, because now you're dealing with intellectual property, and you want to ensure that what your risk reward rating is. And that's how you strategically plan out of, okay, what am I going to put into my enclave? How am I going to use that? Who's going to use it? Where's the data going to reside? Who has control over all that data? Those are the strategic questions you have to start asking yourself if you want to use it in anything, whether it's the government, enterprise, even if you're a practitioner of OSINT. Like, I do OSINT on my own. I have a strategic pathway of how I do things, because it's methodical, I corroborate everything, and I am using AI with it, but I want to make sure that I'm using it properly.
John?
Yeah, so I think I'll say yes and. I think one of the key things I think about is how you integrate it with the humans.
Yes.
So the human-centered design, and I'll
That's
give
a
you
great point.
two really good examples of that we've seen within AI. The first is when we released AI and started to use it in radiology and healthcare, we saw that when the AI predicted there was cancer, the radiologist overwhelmingly confirmed it, and it's called confirmation bias. And we've seen this most recently also with Israel and some of the things that were happening over there, where there was a whole article that Warren the Rocks put out on the triage trap. And I wrote about this and how important it is when you inform the end user. How does that AI come into the work stream? And how you insert that into the work stream and ensure that the human remains at the forefront and is making the decision, as opposed to confirming what the AI has presented, is critical. And so I think this notion of human-centered design, process, understanding where the AI is inserted into that process, is going to be key to ensuring that we harness this power in the most effective way possible to achieve our missions.
There's so much more I'd like to cover, but we're out of time. John, Deric, thank you very much for joining me.